Welcome to the explainer. So, when you need to know something about a big group of people, do you have to ask every single one of them? Or is there a smarter way, a shortcut to the truth? That's what we're breaking down today. Okay, here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll look at the big choice, asking everyone versus asking just a few. Then, we'll dig into the good and the bad of each. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how you pick those few people, and we'll wrap up by figuring out when to use which method. All right, let's jump right in. We're starting with that fundamental question. You need data, right? And you need it from a whole bunch of people. Do you really have to go out and talk to every last one of them? Or is there another way?
I mean, you've seen this, right? Election night comes around and they're calling the winner based on interviews with just a few thousand voters. How in the world do they do that? How can they know what millions are thinking by just talking to a handful? Well, it all boils down to this big choice between two really powerful ways of gathering info.
Okay, so method number one is the census. This is the big one. It's the we're going to ask absolutely everyone approach. Simple as that. You want to know the favorite pizza topping in your city? A census means you're asking every single resident. Nobody gets skipped. And then there's the other way, the sample method. This is what you could call the smart shortcut. Instead of trying to talk to everyone, you just talk to a smaller, carefully chosen group. The whole idea is that this little group can tell you about the entire population. You know, it's like a chef tasting a tiny spoonful of soup to know if the whole pot is seasoned right. They don't need to drink the entire thing. So that's the fundamental difference right there. It's all about scope. A census is the full movie, every single frame. A sample is a perfectly chosen snapshot that tells you the story of the whole film. One gives you everything, the other gives you an incredibly accurate picture if you do it right. All right, let's zoom in on that first contender, this census, the full count. What's so great about it? And, well, what's not so great? You see, the number one selling point of a census is its power. We're talking about incredible, rock-solid accuracy. Why? Because you're not guessing, you're not estimating. You are literally getting data from every single person. It's the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And that leads to some major pluses. For starters, it's super reliable and accurate. And since you're including everybody, there's way less room for bias to sneak in. You know, you're not accidentally picking a weird group. Plus, you can study all sorts of different characteristics and get this super rich, detailed set of information. Okay, but here's the massive catch. Doing a census is a beast of a project. We're talking crazy expensive. It takes forever, and for really large groups, forget about it. Think about trying to do a census of every YouTube user. It's basically impossible. And funny enough, because it's so huge, there's actually a higher chance for simple mistakes, like typos in the data, to mess things up. And all those problems with a census? Well, that's exactly why we have the alternative, sampling. This is the practical solution. This is how those election polls we talked about actually happen. So sampling comes in and just boom, solves the census's biggest headaches. It's way cheaper, it's way faster, and it's just so much easier to handle. But get this, and this might surprise you, a really well-done sample can sometimes be even more accurate than a census. How? Well, because you can focus all your energy and money on getting really good, high-quality information from that smaller group. However, and this is a big however, the strength of sampling is also its greatest danger. Let's go back to our chef. What if the soup isn't stirred? If they only taste the top, they might think it's bland, while all the spices are at the bottom. It's the exact same with data. If you pick a bad sample, one that isn't a good reflection of the whole group, your results are going to be totally wrong. Getting that sample just right is everything. So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you do it right? How do you make sure that small group you picked is a perfect mini version of the big one? Well, there's a whole playbook for this. Let's get into some of the most common techniques. Okay, so sampling methods basically fall into two big camps. You've got probability sampling. Think of this as the random lottery-style method. Then you've got non-probability sampling, which is less about pure chance and more about convenience or a researcher's judgment. And the difference really comes down to one thing: chance versus choice. With probability sampling, everything is based on random chance, which means every single person has an equal opportunity to be picked. That's the best way to avoid bias. Non-probability sampling, on the other hand, is subjective. The researcher is making a judgment call. Let's start with the classic, simple random sampling. This is the most straightforward probability method. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's like putting everyone's name into a giant hat and just drawing a few out. Totally random. Everyone has the exact same chance of being selected.
Then you have something called cluster sampling. Now, this one is super useful when your population is huge and spread all over the place. Imagine trying to survey students across the entire country. Instead of trying to pick individual students from everywhere, you could randomly pick, say, 50 schools. Those schools are your clusters. Then you just survey the students within those 50 schools. It makes a massive job so much easier.
Now let's flip over to the non-probability side. A really common one here is convenient sampling, and the name says it all. You just survey people who are convenient. People at the local coffee shop, your friends on Facebook. It's super fast, super easy, super cheap, but it can be super, super biased. The people at one coffee shop are probably not a good reflection of the whole city, right? Okay, so we've got the full census. We've got all these different sampling methods. How on earth do you choose? When do you go for the whole shebang, and when do you take a shortcut? And if you take that shortcut, which path do you follow?
Well, this really breaks it down nicely. There's no magic answer, no one-size-fits-all solution. It all depends on your project. Look, if your population is small and you absolutely cannot afford to be wrong, a census is your best bet. But for pretty much everything else, if the group is large, if you don't have $1 billion, if you need answers this century, sampling is going to be your go-to.
And really, this is what I want you to take away from all this. Knowing the difference between these methods gives you a kind of superpower perceived through the data that's thrown at you every single day. So the next time you see a news poll or some market survey, don't just swallow the headline. Ask yourself a question. How did they get this number? Did they even try to talk to everyone, or was it just a sample? And if it was a sample, how good was it? That one little question, well, it changes everything.